Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Today, we're going to be talking about the top 5 DIY games that you can do at home. A couple of you have put in the chat box how old your child is, and you have young children. Some of you may have older children who are beginning to read and write. And keep in mind that any of the things that we discuss today can be modified for any age. We always want our activities to be age appropriate, but that doesn't mean that your older child can't practice reading skills. Um, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I will wait until the end to take a look at those comments or questions, and we will go through them at the end. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about CARD. That is where I work. I work at the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities. We do lots of different things, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. In South Florida, these are our locations. Our main office is at the University of Miami, and we serve Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and Monroe County. Um, my office is at our Nova Southeastern University satellite office. And we also have branch offices in Miami Lakes and Miramar. So this is a list of our various card services. A couple that I will bring to your attention, just so you're aware of what we do. At no cost to the families that we serve, we provide individual family support services. And that means that we help families who have children with autism or developmental delays. We help them find the resources in the community that they need, and we help empower them to learn the skills that they need so that they can help their child grow and bloom and learn. We also offer a lot of parent and professional educational training services and opportunities. We provide programmatic technical assistance, and we go to visit programs, schools. Sometimes it's a workplace to help train individuals, employers, to serve individuals with autism in their program. We also have an adult and transition service department. And so we really serve every age. We say, from birth through death, we are here to serve the family and the individuals with autism. We visit schools often to either observe children, and sometimes schools will ask us to come out for that programmatic technical assistance, so that we can help them problem solve and come up with strategies together. We really love to collaborate with our schools, private and public. If you have a child with autism, or if you have autism and you would like to register with us, you can go to this website. You can put your phone, your camera up to this QR code, and it will take you to the correct link. If you go to the website, just click on Contact Us, and there's a place there where you can register with CARD. You can also, if you don't have a child with autism, or if you don't have autism, you can still get our newsletter. So you can click on Contact Us and sign up there for our weekly newsletter, and it will be filled with information about the various trainings and community events that are going on. All right, so let's get started. This is what we're going to cover today. We are going to talk about evidence-based literacy instruction. What does that look like? The importance of play, the goal of literacy games. Why am I bringing 5 DIY games to your attention today? And how to meet your child's needs, including their communication needs. So the first thing I want to do is ask you guys a question, and I'm going to ask for your participation. If you would put into the chat box, what prerequisite skills do you think are required of children in order for them to participate in literacy learning, games, experiences, lessons? Take a stab at it. What do you think? What do you think they need to know or be able to do? Language. So you think they need to have a foundation of language. What else do you think? Nothing. Anyone else? Joint attention. Well, I'm going to tell you, it is nothing. Your children don't need to know or need to be able to do anything in order for you to teach them literacy skills, expose them to literacy skills, and we're going to talk more about that. So we know that your children don't need to speak. They don't need to understand language. They don't need to have language. They don't need to have appropriate behavior. They don't need to know how to sit, and they don't even need to know the alphabet. Now, here's another question. Please put your answer in the chat box. What priority prerequisite is required of you guys, of the adults, in order to implement the literacy experiences and games that we're going to talk about today? Any thoughts? What do you need to do or know? You need to enjoy reading. Anyone else? Time. Yeah. These are all valid answers. Yeah. Consistency. These are all true. So the priority prerequisite is high expectations. You need to have high expectations of your child that no matter how complex their learning needs are, that they can learn to read and write and engage with others. So, as we move forward in this hour, remember that all children can develop literacy skills regardless of their behavior. They don't need language to participate in any literacy experiences. You guys, as parents, play a large role in the development of these skills because, like one of you said, we need to have consistency when exposing our kids to literacy experiences. And it's not enough for them to just learn in their classrooms. What they learn at home will really reinforce that foundation. And also remember that there is a direct correlation between the number of minutes children have books in their hands and the development of their literacy skills. A very direct and strong correlation. So the more you read with your kids, the more literacy skills will develop. Let's talk about evidence-based literacy instruction so that you guys have the information you need to then implement the games that we're going to talk about today. So evidence-based instruction involves 5 areas of literacy instruction: phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Let's look at each one of these and discuss what they are. So one area is phonological awareness, and that's the ability to recognize and manipulate sounds in the spoken word. So that doesn't mean looking at a letter and knowing the sound it represents. That means hearing the sound. So when we rhyme, that's an example of phonological awareness. Mat and sat. We can hear that those ending sounds rhyme. Another example of phonological awareness is syllable awareness. So again, we're not seeing the word, we're hearing the word. So when I say awareness, there are three different parts to that word. Word awareness is another example of phonological awareness, and that is the awareness that there are separate words that make up a sentence that we are hearing. We can hear separate words, the group of words makes up a sentence with meaning. And alliteration is another example. And that's when the first sound, not letter, the first sound that we hear is the same. So lunch, lion, long. So if we say the long lion ate its lunch, that's an example of alliteration. So again, remember that those are things that we hear. And that's why young children, from the time they're born, listen to songs with rhyming. We play with words. If you think of early childhood books, 2-year-olds are not reading yet, but they're listening to the sound of alliteration in the books that we read. This builds phonological awareness. Then there's phonics. And phonics is the ability to recognize that a letter or a group of letters represents a sound. So if we see the word sit, we recognize s, I, t. Or the word blob. Bl is the first sound. A, b, blob. That's phonics. Fluency is the ability to read text with accuracy. And some of you have very young children, so they're not working on fluency yet. You might be working on phonological awareness and phonics. And fluency comes later when they're reading sentences. But fluency is the ability to not only read with accuracy, but at an appropriate speed and with proper expression. And that allows for reading comprehension to take place. If we don't read correctly, if we read too slow and without expressing, the mood of what we're reading, comprehension is lost. If we read like this, by the time we get to the last word, we forget what the first word was. And so reading comprehension is affected. Vocabulary is another component of literacy instruction, and that's the ability to read and understand the various words that we see or that are read to us. So if we're reading a book about friendship, well, what does the word friendship mean? Do I have friends? What is a friend? What's a relationship? What does helping a friend mean? Those are vocabulary words, and we need to have vocabulary words in order to establish comprehension. And comprehension, reading comprehension, is the last component of evidence-based literacy instruction. And comprehension is the ability to process written text, connect with it, and make meaning. So we don't want to just read. We want to connect with it. When you and I read something, we ask ourselves in our heads, our inner voice talks to us and says, has this ever happened to me? Oh, I know what that feels like. This happened to my brother. We went there too. I ate that also. We make connections with what we read, which leads the text to be meaningful or not. So reading comprehension does rely on vocabulary and language comprehension. So those are the 5 areas of literacy instruction. Again, high expectations are important for learning to take place in any literacy experience. As we're talking about games, when we get into the games that you can play at home, Not only do you need to have high expectations, but you need to think of how you can personalize the content to allow for your child to be engaged and for them to learn. They're different, and we'll talk about this towards the end of this hour, what you can do to individualize for your child. But you want to personalize, and that could include having certain characters appear throughout the games. And you'll understand that more when I show you the examples of the games. It's also important to have structure and routine. So playing a game once is not going to benefit your child. You might have fun, but it would be really important and meaningful if this becomes routine and you practice experiences like this over and over again. It's okay if the game changes from time to time, but we still want to make these games structured and routine so that they know what steps are going to take place in that game and they become proficient at playing it. One last thing to remember is that we have to teach many of our children how to play. A lot of our children are really good at working, and they're not so great at open-ended play. And so this might be a little challenging for some of us to play with our kids because they've been taught from an early age, because of therapies and um, experiences in their classrooms, where they have been taught to comply with certain rules and learn and work. Playing is a totally different skill set. And so you might have to teach them. How can games contribute to your child's literacy skills? Play has a lot of potential. Of course, classroom experiences, sitting at a table, doing activities, very important. But play offers other things. Play can offer the opportunity for increased active participation. So your child actively doing something, and that leads to enhanced retention of skills. So instead of just being a taker of information, being an active participant means your child is doing something with the skills that they're learning. And that's very, very meaningful for learning. Play is fun and it's natural, and it can offer opportunities to learn in the context of, of playing in a natural environment. Play can use areas of interest. So if you know your child loves a specific character or a specific book or a specific topic, pull that into the play that you're doing. Play offers increased engagement and motivation because you're connecting with your child. It can be motivating if it's fun. Play offers opportunities to improve focus and attention and to practice social and communication language skills. What better natural context is there than play to practice those skills? Play can reinforce concepts in that play context, in that multisensory context where we're touching and moving and feeling and talking. That multisensory context can really enhance learning retention. Play offers immediate feedback and reinforcement. It can build confidence because if it's fun and successful, confidence can be built. And it also offers an opportunity to practice self-regulation, which is something that all children are practicing. And that's why play is so important in the younger years. So what can literacy games offer you? Let's look at how literacy skills are learned. So we learned about the 5 components of literacy learning, but now let's look at the how. This model is the emergent model of learning reading and writing skills. And as you can see, we have reading and writing, And we also have listening and speaking, which could include augmentative communication. So if you have a child who does not speak, but they use AAC, like manual signs or a communication board or a speech generating device, that counts as speaking. And so what this model tells us is that all these areas of literacy development are interrelated. The old model used to be that babies would learn to listen and then they would learn to speak and then they could learn how to read. And when they could learn how to read, then they could learn how to write. But we know that children now need to do this all at the same time. Children need to be reading and writing and listening and speaking all at the same time because each area of skill is dependent on the other. And so if you think about this whole, take a quick look. I'm not going to go through each one, but if you look at this whole list of reading and writing skills that one day your children are going to learn, take a look at all of these skills and consider the fact that games can teach all of these skills. And if you look at our model, consider the fact that all of those skills while playing games can follow this model. They can learn those skills and play games while reading and writing and listening and speaking. Games are the perfect opportunity to practice all those skills while learning these larger areas of skills. So let's hop in and let's look at our 5 DIY games. And I specifically wanted these games to be things that you could just make. I will be showing you some forms and things that I made as samples for you. And what I'll do is for those of you who are in attendance today, I am going to put my email address in the chat box before we leave. And if you email me, I'll send you all of these files so that you have all the slides as well as the items that you need to make the things for these DIY games so you don't have to recreate. These are the 5 games we're going to talk about today. And keep in mind that these can all be modified for your child and for their needs. So one is a sight word hunt, roll a tail, word slap, guess who, and adventure quest. And again, these are titles that I made up. You can make up your own titles to engage your child. So let's talk about the sight word hunt. The goal of this activity is to identify sight words. Now, you could do this for letters. You could do this for words that are not sight words, words like cat, dog, mommy. You could really do this with whatever you want your child to practice. In this case, we're talking about sight word identification. And the items you're going to need are sight words written on an index card. And I'm going to show you some photos of these. You'll need masking tape and you'll need a flashlight. What you're going to do is attach these word cards to a wall or many walls in a room or furniture in a dark room using masking tape. This could be at bedtime or it could be at another time of the day, but we're making it dark, thinking that it's going to be fun with a flashlight to find these words with our child. If your child is afraid of the dark, please don't do this. Think of another way to identify the words, or you could still do it in a lit room. So using the flashlight, you are going to find each word. And you're going to aim the light on the word one by one onto each card. And you're going to read each card with your child. And while you're doing this, you're going to be fun and silly. So you're going to say things like, oh, where's another word? Ah, we found one. And you might tickle your child. You are engaging your child and you're being silly. And you can do this every night and you can change the location every night. You can practice all of these skills: sight word identification, letters, rhyming, different vocabulary words. On the side here in that little orange box, I put those 5 areas of literacy instruction, and this game touches upon all 5. It has the potential to touch on all 5. So also, to make this fun, I'm going to show you a photo of it in a minute. You can make up a funny tune or poem. You can say, we're going on a word hunt. Come with me. Shine your light. What will it be? And that engages young children. You can go a step further and add the second 2 lines if you would like. If your child only has patience for the first 2, just do the first 2. You can say, words are hiding here, words are hiding there. We will find words together, words in the air. You can make up anything you want. The point is to engage your child. And this is what it looks like. I did a little sample in my own home. I stuck cards with sight words in my laundry room because it doesn't have windows, and I put the light on the words, and this is what you could do with your child. And remember, the point is to be silly and fun while you're looking for these words. The next game is roll a tale. And I'm going to show you photos of this. I don't know if you can see me holding this, but this is something I made out of a tissue box. So I'm going to show you some examples of it soon. But the goal of this activity is to, you can do different things with it. You can retell a story from a book that you've read. You could create a new story of your own. You could do it to practice the story elements, which are the examples on this cube. Characters, what the conflict is, what the resolution is. These are story elements. And so you can practice story elements with, maybe you have a 6 or 7-year-old, and it is practicing to use imagination. And again, this activity touches upon all 5 areas of literacy development. You're going to need a story cube. And again, at the end, if you email me, I will send you what you need so that you can take a tissue box and make your own story cube. You'll also need a roll a tale form, which I'll show you in a minute, and I can also send to you. And you'll need a pencil or a marker or something to write with. You're going to create your story tube by attaching the symbols that I'm going to send you onto the tissue box. And like I said, you can do many things. If you're going to retell a story that you've read, you're going to take turns throwing this cube like it's a dice. And whatever symbol is facing upward, that's what you're going to answer. And I'm going to show you examples of this in a minute. If you decide to use this cube to tell your own story using your imagination, you're going to take turns tossing the cube, and whatever symbol lands in the up position is the answer that you are going to come up with. Again, I'm going to show you an example in a minute. And the sillier you can be, the more engaging this is going to be for your child. As you roll the cube, you're going to complete the roll a tale form, because once you've completed the whole form, you retell the story that you either just made up or that you you took from a book that you've read. Again, I'm going to show you an example in 1 minute. And these are the literacy skills that you can practice doing this DIY game. So these are photos of the cube. The title is not a story element, but it is still something important that I wanted to include on the cube. And then this is the roll-a-tale form. So for example, if you read the book No David, which is really fun, kids love it because it can be silly. The title, so you roll the cube, and if it lands on, let's say, setting, you discuss it and say, what's the setting? Well, this takes place in David's house. So you write David's house. And then you roll it again and you keep filling in this form. And then once the form is complete, you can retell the story. We read the book No David by David Shannon. And the characters were David and David's mom, and they were in their house. And the problem was David did things that his mom felt he should not do. But in the end, David had a very sorry face, and mom gave him a hug, and it was okay. So first, David made a mess. This is the plot. Mom was angry, and then David was sorry, and mom gave him a hug. These are very valuable skills to be able to retell a story like this. This is another one. Robert Munsch is another great author. If you're not familiar with his books, they are hilarious. And my own kids, when they were little, absolutely loved these books. So this is another example of filling in the roll-a-tale form using the details from the book. This is an example of making up your own story. And so you roll the cube, whatever it lands on, even if it's not in the right order, you just fill in the form. And then you have a whole story that you can retell. The sillier and the funnier it is, or the more you use your child's interests, the better. This is another one. The next game is word slap. And in this game, you can identify letters. And again, if you can see on the bottom under literacy skills, you can also use this to identify other things. You're going to need for this one a fly swatter. And you can get a fly swatter probably at Walmart and Target, for sure Amazon, because I get fly swatters for these activities all the time on Amazon. And I'm going to show you an example in a second. And you're going to need index cards or pieces of paper with the words that you want to practice or the letters that you want to practice on these index cards. And you're going to spread the index cards out over the table or the floor. And you're going to call out whatever it is you're going to slap with the fly swatter. So, and your child can be the caller outer also. So let's say you're the caller outer and you say, find the word mouse, if that's one of the words. And your child has to, and you say go, and your child has to slap the word that you just called out with the fly swatter. And you can take turns doing this, or you can have multiple fly swatters going on at the same time. And again, you can identify letters. You can say, find the word T, and you could practice capital T's, lowercase t's, and you slap it with the fly swatter. This is an example. Now, the example on the right bottom is a fly swatter with a little box where the word is identified in the hole. So you can do that as well. And you can see the example of spreading out the words and giving a fly swatter. And then this game is called Guess Who. And this one is about identifying characters based on hints that you give your child. And you don't need any materials other than the books that you're going to read together. If your child may have difficulty expressing the characters, you may want to print out symbols of the characters or pictures of the characters in the book so that when you give your child the hints, they can just point to that character. So you're going to read a book together, and then you're going to give your child fun hints about a character so that they can choose what character you're talking about. And again, be silly. So Miss Nelson is Missing is another favorite. And an example of this game could be, which character made the students feel scared, was mean, and made the students work really hard? And I might give my child 2 or 3 printed pictures, or they might be able to just point in the book to who that character was. And that character is Miss Viola Swamp, who was the mean substitute teacher who replaced Miss Nelson when she went missing. But Miss Viola Swamp was really Miss Nelson. She didn't really go missing. She was dressing up as a mean teacher to teach her students to behave in class. This is another one, A Sick Day for Amos McGee. Which character was responsible, was tired and was sneezing all the time, was afraid of the dark, and loved to visit his friends? And that's Amos. Amos McGee became sick in the book, and so these characteristics describe him. And then the last game that we're going to review is the Adventure Quest. And this involves a form, and I'm going to show you that form. And the goal is to find all the items that you list ahead of time on this form, or to fill out the form. And you'll see what I mean in 1 minute. So you're going to need the Adventure Quest form, a pencil, maybe a clipboard, and you have to think of things that you're going to find. That'll become clear in a minute. So you're going to complete the Adventure Quest form. What are you going to look for? And you're going to prepare your environment for your quest. And then using the Adventure Quest list, you're going to search for those items. And you're going to have fun, like you're going on a scavenger hunt. And these are all the different skills that you can practice while doing this activity. So this is the Adventure Quest form. In this example, I would plant all these different sight words throughout my house. And I would write them into the form. And with my child, we would go on an adventure quest to find these words that are listed. And when I find it, I will put the check mark, or my child will put the check mark. Or they might want to put a stamp or a sticker or cross it out, whatever your child would want. This is an example of, we're going to go on an adventure quest. Let's find all the things in our house that start with the sound D, the letter D. And in this case, I might have to plant some things around that start with the letter D. I might have to leave some donuts on the kitchen counter. So in this case, you're going to go around the house, and together you or your child will write these items into the form. This is an example of, we're going to look for the sound S. Let's go looking. And so you have planted 6 S's somewhere in your house, along with some distractions. So if you come upon the sound duh, then you are not going to check off one of those S's on your Adventure Quest form. So again, this could be done in so many different ways. This one is, let's find words that rhyme with ran. and you plant a whole bunch of words. Some are distractions and some are actual correct answers. And as you find them, you say, does ran rhyme with pan? Ran, pan. Yeah. And you write it together. Your child can dictate it to you, or you can write it. Make it fun. It's not a task. So those are the 5 games. Have we targeted all these skills that I showed you earlier on? All of these skills are touched upon in just these 5 games. There's so much you could do that's fun in a natural learning context where you could practice all of these skills. Before we end and get to questions and comments, I want to talk a little bit about meeting your child's needs. You may have to do some things to engage your child, to reinforce them and motivate them. Sometimes we need to do a little extra to make things fun for our kids. So first of all, make sure that you're targeting skills based on your child's needs and their level of learning. You want games to be fun. So if it's too challenging, they're not going to connect. You need to make sure that you're choosing literacy skills that are at your child's independence level. So they've already mastered these skills, or they are learning and getting really good at these. And so you're practicing it through play. If it's too frustrating, they're not paying attention. You're not going to have fun. You also want to think about alternative pencils. And that means that your child may have difficulty writing with a pencil, but how else can they tell you what they know in their brain? How else can they show you that they can give a specific answer, that they know it? So if they can't write, can they dictate? Can they type? Can they choose stickers with letters to spell certain things? Think about an alternative way that they can show you the answers to all the various things that we spoke about today. Meet your child's physical needs. So again, if it's too difficult, the fine motor skills, if your child is not ambulatory and it's difficult for them to walk all over the house for a scavenger hunt, make the scavenger hunt close by, maybe in one room. Think about how you can meet your child's physical needs. You want to think about adding that motivation and reinforcement. So you may need to use, like these examples on this slide, first then boards. First, we're going to play the adventure quest, and then you get some free time on your iPad. Or let's say your child really wants to play one game only, and you really want to introduce your child to a new game. You can say, first, we're going to play your game, and then we get to play your game. So you can use the first then board for that. Token boards, that's an example on the top, where as your child is participating, you give them a token. It could be a star on Velcro, or if they love the Minions, have little tokens with pictures of Minions. And as they're participating, you give them their tokens. And when they have all 5 tokens, or 3 tokens, or 10 tokens, whatever you decide, they get a break to do what they want. Maybe it's computer for a couple minutes, and then you reconvene and play the game again or continue the game. Encourage collaboration and engagement. By collaboration, I mean making decisions with you. What game should we play today? Or what do you want to write with? The marker or the crayon? Ask them to make some choices, collaborate with you, give them some control and some buy-in. And then you also want to teach language, and you want to honor all modes of communication. And by that, I mean, if you have a child who's learning manual signing or using a speech generating device, If they are just making sounds, whatever way your child communicates, listen to it and honor it. If your child points to something, they're telling you, I want something. So I would take that as, oh, you said you want this? Okay, I want this. But I'm not going to make them then say it out loud because they already told me through gestures. I'm honoring their mode of communication. We also need to think, as you're thinking about the language that you want to teach your kids, all the things that you can model and teach them. These are some examples. We don't just say, my turn, your turn, when we play a game with other people or when we engage with other people. We can say things like, this is tricky. I don't know where we can find this word. Oh, wait, I can do it. These are things that all kids say. And so we need to expand the words that we're teaching. It's not just about my turn, your turn. Think about all the different functions of our language. We don't just communicate to ask for things. We also communicate to refuse and say, no, thank you, I don't like this, or this is boring. We communicate to request attention, to label things, to make comments. This is fun, or dad would like this. We ask questions and we answer questions. We express our feelings. I'm tired. We engage in social routines using language and we make choices. So we have to be careful not to just box our child into learning the language that they need to request their turn or an item. Think about all the different ways we communicate. And also think about those of you who may use some form of AAC, alternative and augmentative communication. AAC is another way to communicate other than using our words. So think about the words that we want to have available to them, whether they're using a communication board or that speech generating device or manual signs. We want to make sure we're teaching them core vocabulary, words like yes, no, help, again. Fringe vocabulary are those are more the nouns like word, book, game, spinner. And we also may want our AAC learners, our augmentative and alternative communication learners, to maybe learn phrases that are programmed into their speech generating device, like let's play again, or I understand what to do. With those learners, we need to provide them sufficient wait time as we're giving them directions, let them process our language. And also provide them with letters. The alphabet should be available to them on their AAC devices. And we also need to model using their devices while we're playing the game. So when we say, this is fun, I might, on my child's AAC device, touch the word fun, showing them what they can say. So final tips, follow your child's lead, model language, and model how to play. Teach your children, don't test them. We need to get away from saying to our kids, what color is his shirt? What did he do? Touch the girl. What's on her head? What color is that? That's testing. Instead, we need to teach by saying things like, Amos is sick. Remember when you were sick last week? And then wait and let your child connect with these concepts. That's teaching. Don't worry about the rules. So if you've made up rules for a specific game and your child's having trouble following them, abandon the rules. It's about playing together. Make the game playing a rich sensory experience. It should be fun and engaging. Make sure the game is age appropriate. So if you do have an older child and you don't think that the games that I've proposed are age appropriate, that your child might think it's too young for them, even if they are working on these skills, email me and let's talk about what you might be able to do that might be more age appropriate. Make sure the language level is appropriate. Don't try to implement all these games at once. You'll make yourself nuts. Pick one and start there. And then the last thing is, I always encourage the use of visual supports. And these are examples of visual supports. You can use visual supports to help your child learn things to say while they're playing. So you have this available while you're playing games. And if your child is a speaking child, then they can use these as cues that will cue them and prompt them to say out loud these things. But if you have a child that is non-speaking, they can point to these symbols so that you know what they are trying to say. And of course, they need to learn. You need to teach them how to use these symbols. These are symbols that you may use to teach your child to stop and wait while someone else is taking a turn, maybe, or while you're preparing something. My turn, your turn. This is a great one that my colleague, Dr. Carol Zangari, who is the woman at the bottom with the arrow pointing to her, she created this for a client. She's a speech therapist. And this showed this little girl whose turn it was. And when they took their turn, they got their token. And this visual support made it very clear whose turn it was by providing the token as reinforcement and showing whose turn with the arrow. You can also use visual supports to teach game directions, like first we're going to shine the light and then we're going to read the word. That's what the game is. Or for roll a tail, we're going to throw the cube and then we're going to write the answer and then we're going to tell the story. All right, we are going to, let me switch out of this and I'm gonna open up the floor for any questions. I want to thank everyone for coming.